wasn't sure I was going to get a chance to go live today. I am wrestling with the thorniest thing that I have to wrestle with here. Show you. And pull one of them out. Blah, 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 blah. No, I can't. Because you remember my husband had to go to the hospital and have a bunch of tests run 2 months ago. It's not going well. And it looks like there's going to be more. So I've been fooling with the insurance company, and that is a task and a half in itself. Between that, my asthma, and the fact that my ankle is still messed up, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to come on here because I thought I wouldn't be able to breathe. But guess what? I'm starting to feel a little bit better. So here I am. And I want to talk a little bit today about the opposite of patriarchy, which is the gender roles of women in this whole mixed up crazy thing. And the reason is because lately I've been seeing a lot of crap online from a lot of these people who teach at these taco type places, the totalitarian, authoritative church organizations. And I think the main offender I've been seeing lately is Lori Alexander. And she is making me laugh with some of her assumptions about what a woman's role is. Her roles are just, she's got her roles so screwed up on so many levels. And I feel sorry for her husband, Ken, based upon some things she said this week. Okay. And I have a couple of stories to tell. First, I have to introduce myself in case I have somebody who doesn't know who I am. I'm Suzanne Titkemeyer. I used to write a column called No Longer Quivering, where I wrote about the quiverful movement and all the different evangelical things involving that. These are my opinions. Don't bug anybody or harass anybody I'm going to talk about here. So this whole the role of wives is just such a loaded subject, and I see so many people make something of it that it is not. I was going to tell you guys a story about the roles of women and some of the roles that I saw in my old church. I saw women trying to, them being submissive or doing whatever would be like trying to use a teeny tiny thimble to scoop out the rowboat that's leaking and falling, because a lot of these guys, there is no satisfying them whatsoever. And a lot of relationships depend upon cooperation between husbands and wives. It's just kind of how it is. Like, I hate filing insurance paperwork, but I know I'm the one that is best suited for that because my husband does not have the patience. And just like I know there are other things that I don't have the patience for that he does, one of which is Bible study tonight. And he makes me laugh because he doesn't go every Tuesday, but he has a couple of times said, "Hey, I need you to make food for how many people? I've got to bring something. And can you do deviled eggs?" Well, it's 5:30 in the afternoon and I don't have any eggs boiled. So I've had to say no a number of times, and I had to say, you need to run to the store and buy something because you haven't left me enough time. And I'm not going to make myself crazy doing this for a group of people I think are pretty awful to start with because of some of their theology. So I won't even go there with him anymore. Earlier today, he told me what they wanted. And I just looked at him and shook my head and said, I don't have any of that stuff. So it's going to be another bringing chips and dip night for him. I hate to say it. Okay, so what was I seeing that is so awful? Well, Lori Alexander frequently posts. I don't always pay attention to her because a lot of times you're looking at her posts for, where did she get that? The one that just made me just sad for her husband, Ken, was that she'd made him a pot roast and was woo about how making a pot roast. And apparently her and her husband in the same age group as my husband and I. And she said this is the first time she's ever made a pot roast and she made it for him. And it's his favorite meal. I was blown away by that because I don't know, but even in quote heathen heathen marriages, doesn't the person who does the most cooking usually make stuff for the person they're cooking for, the spouse, stuff they like, their favorites? I know I do. And whether or not I do that is never dependent upon whether or not I've been submissive, love Jesus, go to church, whatever. It's just what normal, decent people do. We don't refuse to make the stuff that people like. Another one that made me laugh that she was saying just the other day is Lori was talking about a church that would not allow her to teach Titus 2, I guess it is, about submitting to your husband and everything, and about one of the wives being so involved with Bible study and teaching and all this stuff that she was neglecting the husband, number one. And number two, when the husband wanted to go to a new church, she said, no. Here's the thing on that. Husbands and wives are allowed to disagree on anything they want, whether there's whether there's agreement on church or not. And if you feel blessed somewhere and he feels blessed somewhere else, there's no harm in you going different places. I know people here who do that. Heck, we've done it before, and it's a-okay. It's what has to happen. I remember when we were getting ready, he was getting ready to leave our old church. I was not going to leave. I was going to stay. And I had people like my pastor that were demanding I divorce my husband and stay. And I was hearing in my prayer life that I was gonna go, I should go with him. And I did not want to do that, even though it's a Bible, it says it in the Bible, you go where the husband goes. But it doesn't say church because church was not a thing back then. So because I was hearing in my prayer time that I was supposed to go with him, eventually I did go with him. After a few little bumps and ups and downs, it happens sometimes. And that is just the way it is. We should be doing this all the time. If your husband wants you to do something, you probably should prayerfully consult God. You should probably pray about it and see if you get some kind of peace or answer or anything before you do it. Unless it's just a no-brainer, like he tells you to jump into a bathtub full of razor blades and alcohol, or he tells you to join him on some kind of weird sexcapade. And I've known people who've done that, who have said, I'm opening the marriage and I'm going to do XYZ. And the other person said, I don't want to do that. And Lori, I mean, everything she does about women is just so awful on every level. Recently, she did a video about what to do if your husband is having an affair. And I didn't agree with her on much in that video. I think it's pretty awful when married men have affairs. I gotta move this. My neighbor, not neighbor, we have somebody living in our casita, in our little guest house. And he just pulled up out front, is parked. And I don't need him looking in here while I'm on the video. So there you go. What was I talking about? Oh, about not doing it if your husband is wanting you to participate in something you know is sinful, like a threesome, for example. Not that there's anything wrong with threesomes. If you and your husband agree on that and that is what you're into, go for it. I am not your mama. I'm not John Law. If that's your thing, go for it. I just happen to believe personally that when you get married, you put all that stuff aside. You do all that crazy stuff beforehand if that's something you want to do. And Lori goes even farther. And a lot of the things she says about what happens when your husband cheats involves praying for him. And you should be praying for him regardless whether he's violently abusive or not. But if a man is abusing you in some way, shape, or form, and that can be financial, that can be um, mentally, emotionally, that can be physically. There's so many different levels of this thing. And there's no one right or wrong answer. I've known women who their husbands have had affairs, have taken them back. All I can say is they are better women than I could be, because personally, for me, that is a hard and fast line. I wouldn't take anybody back for cheating. I never have, I never will. But that's just me, because I don't know if I could forgive somebody well enough to actually let them back into my life and back into my heart if they were to cheat. So Lori was saying all kinds of different things about that. You shouldn't seek divorce. You shouldn't leave. You shouldn't make him leave. You should pray for his conversion and pray for the conversion and him and the lady. You really should pray for them anyway, because it's a hard thing. I had a family member that carried on a very long affair with a man who was married. And the man's wife knew it, and she would call these people's house all the time. She would call hundreds of times a day. One time she got one of the teenagers who tried to reason with her more than once, and it didn't go well. When there are these affairs going on in families, sometimes the kindest thing you could do for your children and for your mate is to separate. Now, I'm not saying you have to run out and get a divorce, but if this is going on and your children are being dragged into it and it's affecting them and they're seeing how unhappy you are, they're seeing all of the stuff going on with the other parent, that creates all kinds of trauma in children. It just does. And even in teenagers, and those are supposed to be old enough and sophisticated enough. And as a mother, your primary goal with your children is to prevent them from having any kind of harm. Separate and live separately for a while from the man and decide from there which way you go. I mean, a man that cheats on you has broken the marital contract. It's broken all of the bounds that they're supposed to have. I mean, even Jesus said, if you get cheated on, you can divorce. It's about the only way you can, if you're doing it biblically. Except for, like, I still think that abuse of any type is a good reason to end a marriage. It really is. So I'm not trying to beat up on Lori. I actually feel kind of sorry for Lori Alexander, because she is constantly putting out things she's written. She's constantly putting out stuff online that just is like, oh. Example, the other day she put something up that I just was like shaking my head, talking about how she forced all four of her children to read Michael and Debbie Pearl's books while they were still in their house and they were still young. I just shudder at that one, because Michael Pearl, his books, To Train Up a Child, and the other ones are all about CA. They're all about how to create CA, complex PTSD, and all sorts of things in the children. Debbie's books aren't much better. The one she wrote that supposedly convicted Lori to be more submissive has chapters named Hillbilly Ugly, and it is just a whole lot of blaming and shaming. If your theology causes you to blame other people like that and to say that they are they're responsible for their own problems 100% of the time, particularly when there's a power dynamic in a lot of these marriages in evangelical town, most of the time you have the husband has the job, he has all the money, he has all the access, he has all the control, and the wife is stuck at home with the children, and she can't even have a say so in how the money is spent at all. It's just like, yes, dear, yes, dear, yes, dear. Let me make you that pot roast, dear, instead of chewing somebody out on your honeymoon because they ate Ritz crackers and cheese. That happened. Lori talked about it. We have to get along with each other, and it's probably better if we keep short offense lists and we don't rub up against each other so hard all the time. I sometimes will be rough. Lately, I have been, because my husband's not listening about wet towels. I live in a tropical climate. Wet towels create mildew and mold. So I am hell on wet towels. And every time he leaves one somewhere he's not supposed to, I'm going to say something. That is just how I am hardwired. Instead of just meekly picking up the towel and rushing off, I want him to learn that putting a wet towel on something other than a drying rack is just asking for mold here. I don't know if he'll ever get that. He still doesn't change. He still doesn't close closet doors, except about half the time. So we'll see. But it just makes me laugh because I'm sure there are a lot of things that I do that irk the crap out of him. And he and I will sometimes say something to each other. Today he was after me, and yesterday to submit everything to insurance. And I admit I put it off. It's an onerous task. It takes forever. It's a lot of stuff to do. And I just prefer to have a block of time dedicated just to that one stupid task and do it every 3 months because my insurance doesn't like you submitting more often than every quarter, which I hate because it turns what should be a simple few minute task into 3 or 4 hours of drudgery. So that's what's going on with us. That's what's going on with him. And so many times I bite my tongue. Yesterday he was saying, "That's the nicest thing you ever said to me," because I told him, I said, "I want your PSA numbers to be low because I want you to stick around because I need you here as my interpreter. My Spanish is getting better, but I still need him here." Now, our old church, they used to teach this radical submission that she's talking about. And we tried it for a long, long time, like 10 years long. And we were both miserable. He wants me to do things like research things to the nth degree and then get back to him and say, "Hey, we can do this. Hey, we shouldn't do this." He didn't want to be bothered by a lot of that stuff. And under the way we were doing at our old church, I was not supposed to be the one that was researching different investments. I wasn't supposed to be doing that, but I was doing it on the sly because again, my husband's not a researcher and I most certainly am. So many different things. So we both did not like the whole submission thing at all, the radical submission that is preached. Now, that's not to say that you have to always agree on every single little thing. There have been times we've knocked heads over things, and one of us has had to graciously give way within an hour or so of it happening because, you love your spouse. You have to live with your spouse. And not only are you cooking them their favorite foods and you're doing the things they like because they like it, there are things that you just have to, okay. It's like he loves to watch about what's going on in Israel. I do not. I get anxious at the news media stuff. So when that happens, these go on and I start listening to music and move along to another room in the house, usually too. So I don't have to listen to him shouting at the television screen when they interview somebody he doesn't like. Or this morning he was yelling at the TV because he was watching Fox News, even though he hates it. He was watching it. It was just too much for me. I was like, no, I'm listening to music. You do your thing. And, that's okay. We're all wired differently. We're all meant to be different. And not everybody's marriage is the same. We're all going to figure out what works best for us. For some people, that radical submission, male, female gender roles work. And if it works for you and you want to do it, go for it. I happen to think it's toxic theology because it robs a woman of any agency over her own life. And for me, that's a huge thing. I had such a struggle with that. Such a struggle with that. And if I had done it like everybody I went to church with, it would have really been a disaster, I think, eventually. It would have been. But I'm content to let everybody do the thing they're doing. My problem comes in when they start telling people that is the only way to be, and that's the only way that Jesus will love you. That's not true. That's not true at all. I look at the role of women in the life of Jesus, and he had so many females surrounding him that supported the ministry and did everything else. And he treated women the same as he treated men. He was radical. He went out and talked to the woman of the well, and he wasn't supposed to talk to her at all under Jewish rabbinical law. There's no way he could have done that and done it and been societally accepted. It was something they just did not do. You didn't talk to women that weren't in your family, you weren't related to, and you certainly did not talk to women who were committing adultery. You just didn't do it. Okay, you guys, no comments, but that's okay. I might be rambling here to myself. My video might be all messed up because I know how it goes here with the internet. So I'm going to go ahead and go. I'm done with insurance for the day. And done with everything else. I have to work on my book and do some other things, but there you go. And I'm sorry it's taken so long about the book. I'm having to rewrite parts of it because I was convicted of some of the things I was talking about and some of the people. I don't want to have any of these idiots. Oh, you've been listening while cooking? Okay, look, my grands, thank you. I don't want anybody on my doorstep claiming that I defamed them. And so I'm being very careful with the content now. It'll be funny. It's all funny stuff because all funny stuff happened along with the really bad stuff too. Okay, you guys, I'm gonna go. Enjoy your cooking. Love my grands. And I'll see all of you later.